guys, it's Phil here, back at it again, and in this one we're going to be talking about my Apophis Melter build. Now this one is pretty interesting. It actually is a little bit different than some of the other ones you might have seen, mainly because of the build and the skill tree. You might recognize the ceramic bod in some of the gameplay, but from there, we also are able to use a wombo combo, shock specifically, and we also can use the 4% kinetic K's on. So let's get into this build, and I will show off a lot of what I've got going on here. It's, based on the Apophis Lance, and the entire idea of the tree is essentially getting the most gun damage you can out of the Apophis Lance tree, as well as a little bit of support from the Peacebreaker tree. So we'll go over the equipment, we'll go over the skill tree, we'll go over the firmware, our specializations, our strengths and weaknesses, and that should be it for us. And I will show some gameplay at the end of mobbing and some bossing. Now, this build is built more for bossing, I will say. It's not so good at mobbing, and I'll show a little bit of that off later. But let's get into this. So the main thing this build is built around is actually the ceramic bod. Very, very, very good weapon. I highly recommend having the SMG multi-loader, but unfortunately I have the pistol one. It's not the end of the world, but it's not as good as I would like it to be, and that is not really so much of a problem as it is in some other builds that are based on the SMG proc, but it can be a problem if there's certain alterations you want to make to the build. The main idea is to get the sticky bullets that explode on it reload in order to build up as much damage as you can at once on these enemies. That stacks with first impression as well as stacking with metal management, which makes it so your gun consumes no ammo, so that the first thing that you're firing is constantly a fully loaded weapon magazine, which gains more damage. As well, while overdrive is active, you gain more gun damage. As long as you fire a shot right after activating Apophis Lance, you then can turn around and charge a shot, which will increase your damage even more. It will continue to not be consuming ammo, and your damage will just be exponentially increased. So this deals a great deal of damage, especially with a decent bod. Now, along with that, we also have the Shock Wombo. It's pretty self-explanatory. This is more of a mobbing-based gun, but it can be used for bossing in certain circumstances, especially if the enemy does not resist shock. As well, I also have a kinetic damage Kazon, which is very, very good. The 4% sticky multiplier is very important. You don't see it in this build because I have no idea how to edit the sticky multiplier on here. So that's just where we're at. It's a very good gun for bossing. And then the fourth gun, I just have the King's Gambit just because of my previous build. It's just a fun gun to have. It's fun to carry around. I like it. It reminds me of simpler times. Along with that, I'm using my Accelerator Triple Bypass, and I have switched the firmware from my previous build. I'll get into that in a second. But the Accelerator Triple Bypass, especially when stacked with caffeine, which I'm working on getting instead of CQC, will allow you to pretty much instantly recharge your Apophis Lance. And especially, I have a mini triple bypass, which means the cooldown is only 16 seconds. So that helps a ton as well. As well as that, I'm just using a fire pot. I didn't really feel like using any other grenade mod. This one is just for a little bit of damage over time. What's very important is the Devastating Dancer, which increases your overdrive bonuses by 100%. And I also have +5 to Mario in here, as well as +1 to Soltado, which is the most important part. Whatever your other +1 is whatever it is. In my case, it's the Thrill. But I also have it with kinetic damage. And as well as that, I am triple stacking Deadeye, which increases our critical hit damage by quite a bit. And you'll see the critical hit synergy when we get to the tree. As well as that, I'm using the Super Soldier. It just has the health and power boosters. This might not be the best roll, but it does do the job for me. So increased fire rate, increased movement speed, and regenerating ammo all infinitely help a ton. Now, obviously, the stats on this are not correct. I thought I had them entered. I guess I didn't. But this would not be a proper Super Soldier build. It wouldn't even be possible at level 50 to have that low of capacity. But, we ball. Along with that, I got very blessed with a Torg enhancement. This actually came from a friend in a Discord server. This is going to increase your guns with Torg license part damage by 25% and 100% damage radius, which actually is going to boost not only the Kazon, but also the bod, as they both have Torg licensed magazines. Now, gun damage, SMG damage, and shotgun damage all are going to increase the bod's damage because it is a gun, it counts as a shotgun, and it counts as an SMG. Now, you see we triple stack Deadeye, that increases our critical damage. We also double stack High Caliber, which is going to increase that projectile speed, getting us out more bullets quicker, and it is going to increase our gun damage. The Pierce is not quite so important, simply because we're using sticky magazines. The bullets aren't needing to go through an enemy anyway, so we're getting the most we can out of High Caliber. So let's get into the tree. We are using the Apophis lands, we are using Ojo Rojo, and this is just going to increase our critical hit chance. And anytime we damage an enemy with Apophis, that's why we fire that first shot. It increases our bonus critical chance for 8 seconds. Now, we are using CDR, as that is going to increase our gun damage baseline across the board. This is perfect for when the Apophis lands is not active, as it still will increase our gun damage. We also have action skill duration being restored whenever we critically hit an enemy. This is very important for later, so keep that in mind. And we are using El Valiente. I've not seen a whole lot of people use this in their builds, but when your shields are at max capacity, it doubles the bonus that you receive, and it's up to 30% more damage. So it actually will increase your damage by up to 60%, I believe, whenever your shields are at maximum capacity. Now, getting into the other tree, the Apophis Lance tree, this is going to be where a lot of the bulk is. We do have 5 points into the Thrill, including another one from our class mod, which is actually going to increase this by, I believe, 18%, and then an extra 12% when Overdrive is active, which brings us to a grand total of 30% fire rate better just from this skill alone. We also have 5 points into Las Haras, which is going to be doubled because of Soltado in the red tree, which is going to double all our Overdrive bonuses, and that is increased by our class mod. Now, along with that, we also have 4 points into First Impression, which bonuses our gun damage for the first shot fired from a fully loaded magazine. Now, along with Metal Management, this means that when we activate Apophis Lance or when we re-trigger it, the first shot from the gun is constantly the first shot from the gun because it is a fully loaded magazine. Along with that, our gun damage is increased by El Soldado, which is doubled even more further by charging Apophis Lance after we fire that first shot, as well as doubled by Soltado. Along with that, we also gain increased critical hit chance, which is doubled by Soltado, and this is going to allow us to continually be hitting crits, even with the sticky shots. They will still proc as crits. Now, along with that, we also have Jacques, which increases our overdrive bonuses even more. I don't believe this is increased further. Like, I don't think this is multiplicative with El Soldado, although I'm not 100% sure. I haven't been able to test it myself. Well, I haven't really thought about testing it myself because the damage is incredible, as you'll see. Along with that, I have 1% into La Garza. This offsets those 5 points into Tamario, which decrease our weapon handling. So that is even further. Then we have 5 points into Deadline, which give us even more increased overdrive skill fire rate, as well as our increased reload speed, which when we do stop firing, once we're charging the gun, it will just basically instantly reload because it's plus 50%, which is 1.5 times faster than your normal reload, which in this case pretty much is 0.25 seconds. So yeah, that's our entire tree. I don't recommend speccing into Project Gorgon, despite the fact that you probably could, just because the taser doesn't really seem to proc a whole lot of the abilities, and I just think the regular Apophis Lance with the extra charge just works. Now let's move on to their specializations. Now I have 20 points into Survivor, 20 points into Brute. I'm using Bullets Are Scared of Me for damage reduction. This will increase our survivability. Now I'm also using the Best Defense, which increases our damage dealt based on shield or health. I am using CQC simply because I haven't run into anything much better to use yet. And if you equip a Slippy Grenade mod, it actually will constantly proc this fire rate increase, which is just pretty fun. Along with that, I also have Riddle You This, and a lot of things actually increase your gun damage. So you can get 50 stacks pretty quickly, especially when fast firing the bod. Now, I have 4 points in a sharpshooter. I am working on replacing CQC with now with caffeine, but I am 16 levels away, technically 17 levels away from having a point in a daredevil, which would allow me to proc now with caffeine. Once I can do that, the action skill cooldown rate is basically going to be negligent, and the duration is going to be negligent. You're not going to have to worry about it because now with caffeine is going to reduce your action skill cooldown by about 75%, and it will just be reduced basically to 0. It'll be around, I think, 3 seconds total, which is going to be pretty much negligent. You're going to be constantly just able to use your action skill, which is going to increase your mobbing ability. But for right now, this build is a glass cannon. It is not as good for mobbing when Lance runs out, which is why I use the triple bypass with Accelerator. However, 6-second bossing, which I will show more of, and your ability to melt big enemies are huge for this build. With that being said, let's get into some more of the gameplay. Now, this is going to be the mobbing section, and as you can see, it's not as good. It's going to be better once I have CQC replaced with now with caffeine. However, in this case, it's just not as good. But there is quite a bit of a points investment in specialization and does require a bit of investment. If you are willing to put the investment in, it's going to be 100 times better. As well as that, you are just able to use the bod a lot more. However, I wanted to show off the Wombo and the Kazon a little bit more so that you guys could see how that works. So essentially, mobbing is going to be focused on staying a little bit away from the enemies as you're using quite a bit of explosives. You also can throw your fire pots as well, or whatever you're using for your grenade. If that's a slippy as well, go right ahead. That's going to increase your fire rate even more as long as you have CQC like I do. However, if you are using now with caffeine, I would recommend the fire pot a lot more, as melee damage isn't going to increase your fire rate anymore. So yeah, this section is going to be focused a little bit on bossing, but as you can see, most bosses just kind of disappear without a blink. I'll include a couple more in here just so you can see on a couple different bosses, but yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. Basically, you want to use the Apophis Lance, which is going to proc a lot of your abilities, and start firing. Hold down the trigger or the mouse button or whatever you're using to fire. You're going to fire a shot from the Apophis Lance. This is going to reactivate many of your abilities. Then you're going to hold down the other trigger or the other mouse button or whatever you use to fire. Whichever fires the Apophis Lance, hold it down so it's charging. This will reduce your weapon accuracy, so be ready to aim. However, this will continue making your gun damage even bigger. So just keep doing this over and over again until the bosses are dead and the mobs are gone. And that's going to wrap up our build guide. So let me know what you think of this build down in the comments. There will be a link in the description to the build on the MaxRollGG website. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.